Poland is extraordinary. I love Polish history, culture, people, food, and especially their attitudes and loyal friendships. Some people don't like the Polish probably because they don't know them. Some people don't like me because I like the Polish. Obviously, I think people should have more self-reflection instead of so much hate for other people. This behavior is a human problem and affects too many people. Perhaps one day, instead of finding the bad in everyone, we can find the good. I find so many positive attributes to the Polish people, and that's why I advocate for them and talk about their astonishing history, because I believe more people should know. First, Poland should not exist historically. Germany and Russia have been trying to eat it up for centuries. Poland is the bloodlands of Europe, sitting in between these two monsters. It did not exist for 123 years, but the people, although split between three nations, Austria as well, was meant to be obliterated, and the people assimilated. They kept their culture together and came back alive in 1919, just in time to save Europe from Bolshevism. The Reds were invading and bringing this deadly virus into Europe, but the Poles stopped them just in time. Perhaps without them, you may be in a labor camp right now. I bet you didn't know that. This salvation was not the first time the Polish saved European civilization. In 1683, Vienna was under siege by the Turks, right on the cusp of reaching the city, making their way into Europe, right for spreading Islam. The Polish again saved the day. This time, the army was led by King Jan Sobieski, and his winged hussar cavalry routes the army. This ends long years of encroachment into Europe. A little more information. Poles seem to be everywhere. This time, a cavalryman named Pulaski and an engineer, Kosciuszko, traveled to America to help Washington. Pulaski saved Washington from sure death or capture when encircled at Brandywine. Pulaski's title is the father of the American cavalry. Kosciuszko's engineering was crucial to the victory in turning the tide at the Battle of Saratoga. He made it possible for the Americans to make a successful retreat. So perhaps without these two Poles, there would be no United States. I don't think this is an exaggeration. Individuals and individual decisions often make history. Just think of Thomas Edison, Steve Jobs, or so many others. We may not be watching this if not for them. Many of us are more familiar with World War II, though Poland is the least appreciated and most manipulated nation from that era. The war began because of the invasion of Poland by the Germans, and most people don't know that the Soviets invaded Poland 17 days later, yet they would be considered our allies. They were no better, and in fact, casualty-wise, worse. The Soviets murdered 22,000 Polish officers at Katyn, and between 1937 and 1938, over 100,000 Poles died in the Soviet genocide. Many Russians themselves were victims. The problem is that our Western intellectuals have been promoting this ideology. Many of these horrific crimes have been covered up, and much of it still is. Like 100 million dead from communism isn't enough. We always say, it'll work next time. Unlike what you hear, the Polish actually put up quite a hard fight against the Germans, but they couldn't do that for long because they were attacked on two flanks. Still, the Polish didn't get to sit at the winner's table like the French did, although the French even had a collaborating government. Poland never surrendered to the invaders and was fighting from the first to the last day of the war. In many other countries, there were cooperating governments, but not in Poland. Ever. The Polish underground was a phenomenon of a worldwide and historical scale. They had a 650,000 man army, 400,000 AK soldiers, and 250,000 volunteers fighting alongside the Allies in the West. Without them, the war may have been very different. And this is beyond a doubt for the Polish pilots that came to the rescue of the British pilots when they needed them most. The Battle of Britain was pivotal, and we know that the Polish pilots were game changers. Indeed, even more, the Poles were the ones that broke the Enigma code, which deciphered the German secrets. Imagine what may have happened without these geniuses. These are just a few of the many ways the Polish played a role in World War II. But how often do you hear about them? Maybe them not marching at the victory parade in London would foretell some of why. Even though the war was won and the Polish came to their rescue, the Poles did not march in the victory parade. The Polish were betrayed at the start of the war and would be betrayed after. No real liberation came until 1989, and still to this day they are betrayed by dishonest historians intent on defaming the Polish after all they had been through. This is why it is vital to check out what you are reading to make sure it is factual and not manipulated. Today, this history is being abused for various agendas, including one that involves a lot of money. When this is at stake, so-called historians will work hand in hand with those who want the money. We all know what money does. Here are some more facts about Poland. The country has been invaded or has fought for their freedom in insurrections over 40 times. Poland adopted its first written constitution in the spring of 1791, which was the second valid legal document of this kind in the world. Marie Curie, the woman who discovered pollen and rad, wasn't French, but Polish. Her name was Marie Sklodowska before she married a Frenchman named Pierre Curie. She was the first woman to win a Nobel Prize, the first person and only woman to win twice, and the only person to win a Nobel Prize in 2 different sciences. Joseph Conrad was actually Polish. The most famous astronomer in the world was from Poland. Nicholas Copernicus was also a Renaissance mathematician. There have been 17 different Nobel Prize winners from Poland. This speech is just the tip of the iceberg for Polish history. There is much more to explore. I challenge you to start your journey.